All right. Chapter 58, Europe and Cadmus. Agenar, Libya's son by Poseidon and twin to Belus, left Egypt to settle in the land of Canaan, where he married Telephassa, otherwise called Agriop, who bore him Cadmus, Phoenix, Cilix, Thasus, Phineus, and one daughter, Europe. B. Zeus, falling in love with Europe, sent Hermes to drive Agenor's cattle down to the seashore at Tyre, where she and her companions used to walk. He himself joined the herd, disguised as a snow-white bull with great dewlaps and small gem-like horns, between which ran a single black streak. Europe was struck by this beauty and, on finding him gentle as a lamb, mastered her fear and began to play with him, putting flowers in his mouth and hanging garlands on his horns. In the end, she climbed upon his shoulders and let him amble down with her to the edge of the sea. Suddenly, he swam away while she looked back in terror at the receding shore. One of her hands clung to his right horn, the other still held a flower basket. C. Waiting ashore near Cretan Gortynia, Zeus became an eagle and ravished Europe in a willow thicket beside a spring, or some say under an evergreen plane tree. She bore him 3 sons, Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Sarpedon. D. Agenar sent his sons in search of their sister, forbidding them to return without her. They set sail at once, but having no notion where the bull had gone, each steered a different course. Phoenix traveled westward beyond Libya to what is now Carthage, and there gave his name to the Punics, but after Agenar's death returned to Canaan, since renamed Phoenicia in his honor, and became the father of Adonis by Eliphasabeoa. Cilix went to the land of the Hypatians, which took his name Cilicia, and Phineus to Thynia, and a peninsula separating the sea of Marmara from the Black Sea, where he was later much distressed by harpies. Thasus and his followers, first making for Olympia, dedicated a bronze statue there to Tyrian Hercules, 10 ells high, holding a club and a bow, but then set off to colonize the island of Thasos and work its rich gold mines. All this took place 5 generations before Hercules, son of Amphitryon, was born in Greece. E. Cadmus sailed with Telephassa to Rhodes, where he dedicated a brazen cauldron to Athene of Lindus and built Poseidon's temple, leaving hereditary priesthood behind to care for it. They next touched at Thera and built a similar temple, finally reaching the land of the Thracian Edonians, who received them hospitably. Here, Thessaphassa died suddenly, and after her funeral, Cadmus and his companions proceeded on foot to the Delphic oracle. When he asked where Europe might be found, the Pythoness advised him to give up his search and instead follow a cow and build a city wherever she should sink down for weariness. F. Departing by the road that leads from Delphi to Phocis, Cadmus came upon some cowherds in the service of King Pelagon, who sold him a cow marked with a white full moon on each flank. This beast he drove eastward through Boeotia, never allowing her to pause until at last she sank down where the city of Thebes now stands, and here he erected an image of Athene, calling it by her Phoenician name of Onga. G. Cadmus, warning his companions that the cow must be sacrificed to Athene without delay, sent them to fetch lustral water from the spring of Ares, now called the Castalian Spring, but did not know that it was guarded by a great serpent. This serpent killed most of Cadmus's men, and he took vengeance by crushing its head with a rock. No sooner had he offered Athene the sacrifice than she appeared, praising him for what he had done and ordering him to sow the serpent's teeth in the soil. When he obeyed her, armed Spartai, or sown men, at once sprang up, clashing their weapons together. Cadmus tossed a stone among them, and they began to brawl, each accusing the other of having thrown it, and fought so fiercely that at last only 5 survived. Echion, Udeus, Chthonius, yeah, Hypernor, I can't say these words, Hyperenor, and Pelorus, who unanimously offered Cadmus their services. But Ares demanded vengeance for the death of the serpent, and Cadmus was sentenced by a divine court to become his bondman for a great year. Footers. 1. There are numerous confusing variations of the genealogy given above. For instance, Thasus is alternatively described as the son of Poseidon. Cilix, or Tityus, Agenar is the Phoenician hero Chinnus, who appears in Genesis as Canaan. Many Canaanite customs point to an East African provenance, and the Canaanites may have originally come to Lower Egypt from Uganda. The dispersal of Agenar's sons seems to record the westward flight of Canaanite tribes early in the 2nd millennium BC under pressure from Aryan and Semitic invaders. 2. The story of Inachus' son and their search for Io, the moon cow, has influenced that of Agenar's sons and their search for Europe. Phoenix is a masculine form of Phanessa, the red or bloody one, a title given to the moon as goddess of death and life. Europe means broad face, a synonym for the full moon and a title of the moon goddess Demeter at Labadia and Astarte at Sidon. If, however, the word is not Europe but Europe, on the analogy of Euboea, it may also mean good for willows, that is, well watered. The willow rules the 5th month of the sacred year and is associated with witchcraft and with fertility rites throughout Europe, especially on May Eve, which falls in this month. Libya, Telephassa, Argiope, and Eliphasaboia are all similarly titles of the moon goddess. 3. Zeus's rape of Europe, which records an early Hellenic occupation of Crete, has been deduced from pre-Hellenic pictures of the moon priestesses triumphantly riding on the sun bull, her victim. This scene survives in 8 molded plaques of bluegrass found in the Mycenaean city of Medea. This seems to have been part of the fertility ritual during which Europe's May garland was carried in procession. Zeus' seduction of Europe in eagle disguise recalls his seduction of Hera in cuckoo disguise, since, according to Hesychius, Hela bore the title Europa. Europe's Cretan and Corinthian name was Helotis, which suggests Hellas, willow. Heli and Helen are the same divine character. Callimachus, in his Epithalamion for Helen, mentions that the plane tree was also sacred to Helen. Its sanctity lay in its 5-pointed leaves, representing the hand of the goddess, and its annual slowing of bark, but Apollo borrowed it as the god Ismon did Tanit's open hand emblem. 4. It is possible that the story of Europe also commemorates a raid on Phoenicia by Hellenes from Crete. John Malalas will hardly have invented the evil evening at Tyre when he writes, Taurus, bull, king of Crete, assaulted Tyre after a sea battle during the absence of Agnar and his sons. They took the city the same evening and carried off many captives, Europe among them. This event is still recalled in the annal Evil Evening observed at Tyre. Herodotus agrees with Malalas. 5. Tyrian Hercules, whom Theseus worshipped at Olympia, was the god Melkarth, and a small tribe speaking a Semitic language seems to have moved up from the Syrian plains to Cadmea to Caria. Cadmus is a Semitic word meaning eastern, whence they crossed over to Boeotia towards the end of the 2nd millennium, seized Thebes, and became masters of the country. The myth of the Sown men and Cadmus's bondage to Ares suggests that the invading Cadmeans secured their hold of Boeotia by successfully intervening in a civil war among the Pelasgian tribes who claimed to be Autochthonous, and that they accepted the local rule of an 8-year reign for the sacred king. Cadmus killed the serpent in the same sense as Apollo killed the python at Delphi. The names of the Sown men Echion, viper, Aedeus of the earth, Chthonius of the soil, Hyperernor, man who comes up, and Pelorus, serpent, are characteristic of oracular heroes. But Pelorus suggests that all Pelasgians, not merely the Thabians, claim to be born in this way, their common feast being the Peloria. Jason's crop of dragon's teeth was probably sown at Iolcus. Iolcus, or Corinth, not Colchis, period. 6. Troy and Antioch were also said to have been founded on sites selected by sacred cows, but it is less likely that this practice was literally carried out than that the cow was turned loose in a restricted part of a selected site, and the temple of the moon goddess founded where she lay down. A cow's strategic and commercial sensibilities are not highly developed.